Hello again. This is chapter 3 of A Case of Need. The sign on the flaking green door said homicide, and underneath on a hand-printed name card, Captain Peterson. He turned out to be a stiff, burly man with a close-cropped gray hair and a terse manner. He came around the desk to shake hands with me, and I noticed he had a limp in his right leg. He made no effort to hide it. If anything, he exaggerated it, allowing his toe to scrape loudly over the floor. Cops, like soldiers, can be proud of their infirmity. You knew Peterson hadn't received his in an automobile accident. I was trying to determine the cause of Peterson's injury and had decided that it was probably a bullet wound. Rarely does anyone get cut with a knife in the calf. When he stuck out his hand and said, "I'm Captain Peterson. John Barry." His handshake was hearty, but his eyes were cold and inquiring. He waved me to a chair. "The sergeant said he hadn't seen you around before. I thought I ought to meet you. We know most of the criminal lawyers in Boston." "Don't you mean trial lawyers?" "Oh, of course," he said easily. "Trial lawyers." He looked at me expectantly. I said nothing at all. A short silence passed. Then Peterson said, "Which firm do you represent?" "Firm?" "Yes. I'm not a lawyer," I said. "I don't know what makes you think I am." He pretended to be surprised. "That's not the impression you gave the sergeant." "No?" "No, you told him you were a lawyer." "I did?" "Yes," Peterson said, placing his hands flat on his desk. "Who says so?" "He says so." "Then he's wrong." Peterson leaned back in his chair and smiled at me. A very pleasant, let's not get all excited smile. If we had known you weren't a lawyer, you'd never been allowed to see Lee." "That's impossible. On the other hand, I was not asked for my name or my occupation, nor was I asked to sign in as a visitor." The sergeant was probably confused. "That's logical," I said, considering the sergeant. Peterson smiled blankly. I recognized his type. He was a successful cop, a guy who had learned when to take it and when to dish it out. A very diplomatic and polite cop until he got the upper hand. "Well," he said at last, "I'm a colleague of Dr. Lee." If he was surprised, he didn't show it. "A doctor?" "That's right." "You doctors certainly stick together," he said, still smiling. He had probably smiled more in the last 2 minutes than he had in the last 2 years. "Not really," I said. The smile began to fall, probably from fatigue and unused muscles. "If you're a doctor," Peterson said, "my advice to you is to stay the hell away from Lee. The publicity could kill your practice." "What publicity?" "The publicity from the trial." "There's going to be a trial?" "Yes," Peterson said, "and the publicity could kill your practice." "I don't have a practice," I said. "You're in research?" "No, I'm a pathologist." He reacted to that. He started to sit forward, caught himself, and leaned back again. "A pathologist," he repeated. "That's right. I work in hospitals, do autopsies and things." Peterson was silent for some time. He frowned, scratched the back of his hand, and looked at his desk. Finally, he said, "I don't know what you're trying to prove, doctor, but we don't need your help, and Lee is too far gone." "That remains to be seen." Peterson shook his head. "You know better than that." "I'm not sure I do." "Do you know," Peterson said, "what a doctor could claim in a false arrest suit?" "A false arrest suit?" $1 million, I said. Well, let's say 500,000. It doesn't matter much. The point is essentially the same. You think you have a case? We have a case, Peterson smiled again. Oh, Dr. Lee can call you as a witness. We know that. And you can talk up a storm using big words, trying to fool the jury, to impress them with your weighty scientific evidence. But you can't get past the central fact. You just can't get past it. And what fact is that? A young girl bled to death in the Boston Memorial Hospital this morning from an illegal abortion. That fact, straight and simple. And you allege Dr. Lee did it? There is some evidence, Peterson said mildly. It had better be good, I said, because Dr. Lee is an established and respected... Listen, Peterson said, showing impatience for the first time. What do you think this girl was, a $10 doxy? This was a nice girl, a hell of a nice girl, from a good family. She was young and pretty and sweet, and she got butchered. But she didn't go to some Roxbury midwife or some North End quack. She had too much sense and too much money for that. What makes you think Dr. Lee didn't? That's none of your business. I shrugged. Dr. Lee's lawyer will ask the same question, and then it will be his business. And if you don't have an answer, we have an answer. I waited. In a sense, I was curious just to see how good, just how diplomatic Peterson was. He didn't have to tell me anything. He didn't have to say another word. If he did say more, it would be a mistake. Peterson said, "We have a witness who heard the girl implicate Dr. Lee. The girl arrived at the hospital in a state of shock, delirious and pre-comatose. Anything she said will constitute weak evidence. At the time she said it, she wasn't in a state of shock. She said it much earlier. To whom? To her mother," Peterson said, with a grin of satisfaction. She told her mother that Lee did it as they were leaving for the hospital, and her mother will swear to that. That's the end of chapter 3. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time.